With our school board meeting for the Nampa School District, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A little bit of an echo there. We do have Trustee Taylor on the phone with us. She'll be here momentarily. We'll welcome the guests we've got now. We'll welcome anybody else that comes after executive session. And we will move on to the mission and the vision. The mission of the Nampa School District is to ensure high levels of achievement for every student. And the vision? Every student is fully engaged in extraordinary learning experiences, preparing for a successful transition to the next stage of life. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and I will entertain a motion to move us into executive session.
I motion that we move into executive session for Idaho Code 74-206, 1B, D, F, and J. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. D, to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 Idaho Code. F, to communicate with legal counsel for public agency to discuss the legal ramifications and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated, but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel at an executive session does not satisfy this requirement. And J, to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 74-206(1) A and B, Idaho Code.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Chair Jennings.
Aye.
Trustee Behrens.
Aye.
Trustee Salinas.
Aye.
Trustee Taylor.
Okay, we will move into executive session and be back promptly at 6 o'clock for our budget hearing. o'clock. We are out of executive session and we will move on to our next item, which is our budget hearing. Dr. Russell?
Yeah, Treasury Trustees, tonight we will start off with our budget hearing. We're going to ask Director Dewey to come forward and share a little bit around our budget hearing and some of the finances we're at.
All right, I'm gonna try to keep this pretty short for you guys. And I got a pretty short presentation, so we're gonna go from there. If at any point you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask those questions, please.
Thank you.
All right, if you want to go to the next one here. So the general fund revenues, just kind of keep this on your mind. We are looking at 100%, 176 kid decline and still. And really what that is not that I see a lot of people trying to leave us. It's really more of small kindergartens, bigger senior class. So we're just kind of losing that attrition little by little. So that's kind of where we're at. We are budgeting about 8 units less. There is an increase that the state has given us for the state career ladder. So that part, but the weird thing about that is they're actually funding it with one-time money in their PSIF. So we're not sure exactly what that's going to mean for next year, because that means if they give it again, then they have 2 years to make up in a grant in a year. So I'm not sure exactly what that's going to do for us next year. So we'll have to keep in tune on that. Again, I'm going to really stress here with the health insurance that what you did, we're on the state plan. And because of that, we got a larger increase than the others that weren't. We did have a pretty sizable increase in our per person cost, but the amount that the health insurance they gave us kind of outweighs that. A lot of other districts were actually seeing double digit, huge increases, 10, 15. One of them, I think, even told me they had 20% increase in their cost, and they got a 10% increase in their revenue. So it's, we're kind of, right now we're at a 1-to-1. So I think that's truly a good thing that we're still looking at for that. So, and then in all the other things and we kind of got lucky this year in some of our other line items that they didn't nickel and dime us in the legislature. And so we're pretty much the same in a lot of things. So that made it a little easier on different ways, what we were doing. And then no change in penalties interest. Our interest income is going to be a little less because we are spending on some of our 521 money to be able to do a lot of the projects with Skyview, East Valley, in the bus barn and some of those things. But yeah, so that one's going to be a little less, but not exponentially. And then to remember that the patrons did vote for our supplemental increase to 16.8. The beauty is, remember, we get the 292 money, House Bill 292 money, which offsets that. This year, right now, we got 11.8 million, I think is what was there. From all people on all sides, they're saying we should get more than that next year against this. So sales tax revenues are up, which is a huge driver of that. I'm anticipating we're between 12 and 13 million is kind of what they're thinking. So as a result, you take that even at 12 million, if we're roughly around what we were last year, we only have a supplemental levy that's costing taxpayers about $4.8 million. So that's one of the lowest than anybody in the state. So our tax levy is still very, very, very low compared to anybody. So anybody that complains that our taxes are too high, I've actually had just the exact opposite. I've had more people come to me and say, is ours right? It looks like Nampa is really low. It's like, that's right, because that's what we told you we were going to do. So I think it's a good thing for us.
I always feel like that deserves a standing ovation, but obviously in this setting, I just wanted you to know that.
Well, and it's everybody. I think we've kind of worked in. It kind of worked well with our debt loads coming out. I mean, obviously, we would love to have passed our bond to be able to do a new high school and some other projects we wanted, but it wasn't in the cards right now. It might be in the future. But for what we're doing right now, I think this brings operationally what we're doing to help offset what the state isn't doing to help our district. So that does help quite a bit for us. Go to the next one. All right. So we did have some large increases in our teacher salaries, but that was known because we actually put that directly into the supplemental levy. And remember, the whole goal was to try to get all of our teachers at least to the career ladder, if not above. When we get there, we get pretty much everybody to the career ladder. The goal was to get a little bit above. We do have a sizable amount of people that are paid a little bit more than what the career ladder pays for their position, and we're still trying to right size that. And ultimately, one of the reasons we're also holding on to a lot more people than what we're allocated by the state. And we're doing that for a reason, to really try to do good things in our classrooms. And so that's our goal, is to kind of work around that. So we are, because of our attrition of 1,400 70 something kids. We are looking at a 14 teacher decline. A good chunk of those were in elementary. We have about one more year out of next year where the 5th grade class will go into 6th grade next year. And then that's going to be another pretty sizable hit for our elementaries next year. I mean, the year after. So we are watching it. And hopefully our kindergartners will come back. I think, are we almost to the stage of COVID, baby? I mean, we're right there, but the issue I see is that the people moving in are people still not bringing in kids. I think those are going over the Valley View side. Still West Ada side are still bringing them, but every district in the state other than Valley View, they're losing kids. Boise, I think, is projected a 600 or 700 kid decline. So they think they might be under 20,000 in a couple of years, which is unheard of for Boise School District. Wow. And even West Ada, they lost, I think, another 400 or 500. You can't tell in their district because it's so big, but that's a whole school. I mean, that they lost, if you think about it. So that's quite a bit. So we know that. The budget does include just a step increase, really just years of service, nothing more than that. That step increase is roughly around 2% of each rung. And that, for administrators, it's about $100,000 in expense, and for classified, about $200,000. So we felt that was super important for me. One of the things that always, and I've heard it for years prior to me coming, that, teachers get a raise, but nobody in admin or classified get a raise. And it was just really disheartening for a lot of people. And so we really wanted to make a choice to do that. Are we going to be able to do it next year? Really, we don't know because of what's for the year after. It just really depends on what the legislature does. If they do not give us any increases again, then we'll have some discussions. We'll have to deal with that. So this year we kind of made it happen, but hopefully we don't have to make that decision. It'd make it harder. We did. Remember, we had some of that carry forward money, that 4.3 that we got, the one-time funds that we were kind of living off of for some special positions. On those special positions, we had those 8.25 FTE that were our vice principals and some of our deans and stuff that we actually used some of our new supplemental money that we did to go towards that as well. And so we kept those positions because of our behavior, and that felt those just really worked well in our elementary. So that's what we did maintain with that money. We did have to do some operational changes. We did let go of 3 individuals, or actually, should I say, we transferred 3 individuals out of the district office to new jobs. And so they're no longer in the jobs here, into schools and different things. So we did that. And then we are transferring positions that were on the general fund over, and some of the expenses over to different funding that we have that's off the general fund that they had some additional funding for, like tech, maintenance, and then some curriculum as well, to really make up quite a bit of money that we needed to make up in there. So we are seeing about a 3% increase in ABM. It's a little under that. And transportation right now is about 3%. We're not 100% done with some of those negotiations, but we do know in the contract we have, I think it's a 2.9 or CPI that we can do with that. The one thing nice about the transportation as well is, remember, we control the fuel costs. So one of the things that would hit us before when we were the other contractors, they've had fuel mixed in. So when that fuel cost, it would just get embedded in our rate. So if it went up and down a little bit, it still just stayed in a rate, and it never really quite around. Now we own the tank, we own everything about it. So we just have that direct cost, and everything else there's no longer a variable rate of our actual rate goes up. So it's kind of nice. So I think it saves a lot for us. So, and then the bus barn is going to be done here soon. So, and then that'll be a great thing for us as well, that we'll be able to have value in the future, that, so that for many, many years to come. So the next one. I just want to remind you what our supplemental levy is going to pay for. That continue programs, that's really the new salary bucket line item in that. We have the supplemental salaries that pay for all the, the sports and all that. Playgrounds, we got one of the schools we're still maintaining to do. Baseball lights and the field turf, that one's already done. We kind of prepaid and did that work. Some of the building security, and that is, so our SRO bills went up, but the wonderful thing is we actually anticipated that. So we put that in additional here, so it didn't hit our general fund. And then you guys can see the other stuff that we have in there. But I think, it's going to, can we use more? Obviously, I would have loved to have more because it makes my life a lot easier when we have budget. But in the end, I think we were good with what we really needed right now. And we'll see if, when the next cycle comes, what we might need from there. So go from there. Keep going. And then last thing, this is what's most important to me because it's our savings, right? Our fund balances. And if you remember at the beginning of this year that we're in current year, we came to you and said, hey, we need $2.3 million of our budget just to be able to make it balance. And in years past, my biggest thing is revenues equal expenditures. So that way, if we ever made savings, which we do every year, but 1% to 2%, when you're a $100 million general fund budget, you can save to $1 to $2 million. That meant we'd have money for additional things at the next year for our carry forward. That was always my carry forward money, where we allowed schools to carry forward their supply budgets. We allowed things to do that. Well, this year we started out in the hole at 2.3 million. Then I was worried it got even worse when our unit count came in lower. And then in the end, everything's working out great. We actually only think we're going to need 1 to 1.5 million of that just to finalize everything. So if you think about where we were at the beginning, I was freaking out thinking we would need about $3 million. We actually, everything's working out exactly where we kind of wanted it to. So, and if we can get it down even more than that, the less we have to take from our fund balance year after year, it's actually going to help us a lot. The current budget that we brought to you guys does include an additional 1.1 million that we need to get out. There's just what's hitting us right now is when we have software. We have $1.6 million in software in this district, and so if that goes up 1 to 3%, you just do the math on that. It doesn't take much, and some of those have gone up. We had one that was trying to go up 24%. Granted, it wasn't a huge one, but it was 100,000 times 24 it's 24 grand, right? Mm-hmm. That adds up after time, right? So we've been negotiating. Courtney's been negotiating like mad to make sure we get the best deal, and Cody is doing a great job with some of our big ones like Power School and those as well to maintain those contracts as well. One benefit of us having less kids is a lot of these contracts are based on a per kid allocation. And so when you have less kids, then you don't get the increase. You just don't get the decrease. It really is an increase in value, but we just don't see it. If that makes it dollar for dollar, it doesn't come there. There is, I got this late last week, is Idaho Power reached out and said, hey, this is kind of what we're looking at, a slight increase in theirs. One of their worries this year for Idaho Power is the dams. They're worried that the water's not going to be there for the dams. We did have a decrease in power rates last year, or the year we're currently in. They think there might be a 1 to 3% increase for next year. But I kind of built that in the budget just in case. I knew this year was kind of a weird year anyway. But if it gets real hot this summer, which it hasn't, luckily, so far, and we have to run AC really, really hard, then that definitely is something we'll have to look at. But I think we're going to be fine there. That's just one of our other big, ones we do. And then the bigger one, and this is where I kind of just put in the big red flag. If legislators decide to do nothing again, which I'm worried when I'm talking to the big wigs at our state Department of Education, and they're kind of starting to put their budgets together for what they're wanting. They're already saying, I don't know if we're going to be able to ask for anything new. I mean, remember everybody else in the state had to take a 3 to 5% discount on everything they did, and we didn't. So my concern is they might actually, if the state doesn't bounce back with some of the numbers that they think they would, which I worry that they might not with some of the inflation that's happening with some of the fuel prices and that right now. Just not sure if that's going to happen, but if that happens, we're gonna have to really dig down and really start looking at, okay, what do we do? What's this is great to have, this is nice to have, but we just can't afford it anymore. And it's people, it's things, it's services, that kind of stuff. We're gonna have to start hunkering down, because the moment at a time our fund balance gets too low, that's when, if you guys remember back before my time, before a lot of us were here, anybody on the board was here by that matter. Then we had to get what I used to call the payday loans from D.L. Evans Bank, where we couldn't even make payroll over the summer. So if that gets too low, that means your cash balance is too low, and we don't want to have that. So, and we just want to be able to have any in case things get worse. We want to be ready for it. We're going to do projections. We're going to do all that to make sure if this keeps happening, what are we going to do? So you guys are aware, we're aware, and nothing should. I mean, there'll always be something different you just didn't expect, but But if we plan right accordingly, then at that point in time, everybody kind of knows where we're going to be, and it's not a big, huge, well, you didn't tell us. That's our biggest thing. So
With us dodging the bullet with a 3 to 5% reduction in all the conversations you've had, could it be education this next year with legislature?
I still think there is a lot of risk of it, or not a lot of risk, a lot of people against giving huge reductions in education funding. The part that I'm not sure what's going to happen is some of the federal government's going through right now, and they're talking about a $2 billion decrease in Title I if the House Education Committee. So not only are we seeing it from our state side, but they're also going to see, from our federal side as well. And so I just kind of the idea of the federal government is we need to lower so the states do more. They pick up their share. But if our state's not willing to pick up more, I just don't know. We already get quite a bit of the general fund allocation. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not saying this right, but the hardest part is we're really a low tax state, and we've kind of proven that, which is good in many different ways. But on the other side, there's just not enough to go around to everybody that needs it. And I don't anticipate them just all of a sudden opening the floodgates across the board to give people their money back, unless things go back to where our growth patterns and stuff like that happen. But the 1 point whatever billion dollars in tax breaks they've given the last 3 or 4 years, that definitely it's helped us in our 292 money for our supplemental, right? But it hasn't helped us in keeping up on our operational whatsoever.
Randy, I've got a couple questions on the summary that you provided us in our packet. On the proposed budget, state revenue at 116, almost 117 million is much higher than even the previous 3 years, but yet our enrollment's going down. That doesn't make sense to me.
Are you talking the general fund side?
Yes.
Yeah. So part of that, remember, is we did have a large increase with our supplemental. So a huge increase. We had almost a $2.5 million increase just because of that, right? From the prior years.
Oh, okay.
And the other side of things, the one thing that our legislators have done a fantastic job is they have funded and really done a good job with the career ladder. So that is where they're putting their money. They've put all the money and the effort in the career ladder, and it's really given a lot more money for teachers. So exponentially, that's in law statute that we have to get paid based on the career ladder. And so, so that's part of where that revenue comes from. Operationally, we're not getting that, but on the career ladder side, that's what's really helping drive that revenue forecast a lot.
Chair Jennings, Trustee Behrens, I think you bring up a really good point. One of the confusion, I think, for the community out there is we do see an increase in education, and it's often said there is an increase out there. It's just the way that it is earmarked. So it goes towards staffing, but it doesn't go towards operations. I mean, you see the increase that we have just in inflation and costs going up and us not receiving money there. It just can be confusing for the public out there. So we are struggling to meet the needs because we haven't had any discretionary funding, and yet we're receiving more money in facilities that we can't use to pay those bills, or teachers that we can't use to pay those bills.
Well, and the one part I want to stress here is we have put a lot of emphasis on maintaining the number of teachers that we have in our classrooms. So we have taken a large chunk of our supplemental levy budget to go towards teachers and to pay our teachers and to have more teachers than what's allocated. There's a lot of districts in the Valley that we no longer do the use it or lose it. They can actually go down 9.5% before they lose any money. So that's what a lot of districts are doing. And so they're actually using that. And so not only are we not using that to be able to make additional money that we can use other places, we have teachers above that as well in terms of the number of teachers. And if you look at just one teacher is anywhere from $85,000 to $95,000 potentially, depending on where they are in the pay scale. And once you pay that, plus that's a total cost. It doesn't take much to get quite a bit of, we get 10, 20 teachers over. That's what a lot of our supplemental levy is going for. And we've chosen to do that on purpose to try to maintain our class sizes and to really try to work through that to help our students. We try to keep our operations lean. We always have. And we just might need to tighten our belts a little more if that's the case.
It's kind of, I think for a lot of the public, it's a hard concept. Like, I mean, I use Costco, for example. They used to only accept MasterCard. Well, if you had $1 million on your Visa, you still couldn't buy at Costco.
Yeah.
And so we have 8 different Costco accounts, quote unquote, and they all take a different card and you can't use the other cards at
Yep.
those stores.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's hard when one account looks pretty good and the other one that we're worried about, you can't commingle those funds.
And they're looking at, again, redesigning the structure again, where they're doing listening sessions all across the state to try to figure out how to do that. One of the things a lot of people are asking is, hey, can we have some more flexibility with the money? So if we know we need it in this area instead of this area, can we use some of this money? Let's say it's PD money and we know we need it more in technology or vice versa. Can we move that without having too much problem? One of the risks I see is, and it goes back to where we used to have our discretionary allocation was just one big bucket island. And the legislators in the Valley here would say, I just hate given you guys 10% on this and not knowing where it's going to go. And so that's why they actually split our discretionary into two, in the healthcare and the operations side. So they knew where the money was going, because everybody's like, you're not even going to give me enough money for my health insurance increase, let alone anything else. And so when you start combining everything in one big pot, legislators like to know where it's going. They like to give their pet projects, and it makes it harder, I think, sometimes to get extra money, as opposed to, one big bucket. They're like, okay, we'll give 2%. And really that doesn't do anything for anybody.
I mean, oddly, it does work as a safety mechanism too, though, because then you can't be, pulling too much out of one and not funding the other.
Yep.
But at the same token, like sometimes it would be nice to be able to shuffle a little bit around.
It would, but reality is it's really not hard. I mean, in a district, once you're there, every one of these has some little caveats that you can do different things. I don't want to say live in the gray, but there are areas that are like, hey, it's allowed to do this, and if we need it, we can try to do that kind of stuff. We've really just tried to use those extra monies in the way that we need them to be, but I don't think there's been a time where we've had problems, running and utilizing the monies that we've got special, because it's just, we know what their restrictions are. We use it the way they are, and just kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So,
The other question I had was on the expenditure side in the general fund still, the capital outlay, it's at 1.1, quite a bit lower than the previous. Just curious what that is. What's included in that?
yeah, so that one it's a little harder because I have to show, there's certain rules for accounting rules on what's capital outlay or what's not. But so a good example is when we're redoing all of Skyview, let's say, or even let's say the PD center we're doing over there at West, unless we're truly building it's a $4 million project over the PD center, right? Unless we're actually truly doing something to expand the building or doing something like that, it's technically not a capital project. It's just a remodel. It's just it's a repair. Now we have to call it a capital project and capital thing because of how we're using the 521 money, but it is in accounting land. It's not really a capital project. We're not buying something new. Now in the building of the bus barn, that is entirely new. We're putting in new, expanding it, and bringing value to that's creating. But everything we're doing at Skyview, that big project, everything we're doing in East Valley, that's all in a professional services area and not in capital projects. So it's really just, it's an accounting thing, but it's not anything different than what we have, what we're doing, if that makes sense.
Tyler, could we throw this up so that people at home can reference what we're talking about? I had a question then. So obviously under the general, it had other sources, and I've noticed that it went down to, and now it's nil for the last two. What were those other sources?
Yeah, so let me get that. So you're talking about the actual on the other two, and then it goes you're talking the first two columns are actual,
Correct.
and that.
Correct.
Again, this is our fun accounting world. So one of the things they've made us do in the last few accounting worlds is whenever we get a new lease, I've got to recognize the lease as a right to use asset, which is a revenue, and then an expense, which is the creation of the lease. So those first two, if you look at the other sources, and then you look right below, and I think there's a debt down on the gray on the fifth one down.
Mm-hmm.
You see how those two match?
Yeah.
Those two match on the next ones. Well, in prior budget, which is this year, and the proposed, I don't know what our leases are. I know what the leases are at the end of the year, so I book them, but I don't put that in the budget because it's really a net zero. So it kind of makes it look bigger, but reality is that line item is it's a moot point. It's really nothing that's truly there. It's an accounting thing to recognize our lease revenue and our lease expense. It does nothing more than that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Trustees, any other questions?
I have no questions.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you very
Thanks,
much,
guys.
Mr. Dewey. Okay, we will now move on to our comments section. I'll have, I think most of us are staff in here. But Clerk Lamont, if you want to look and see if anybody's here
I was
for
gonna
public.
do yours first.
Yep. We'll start with trustee comments and I'll start with trustee Benz. Nothing? Trustee Barons?
Summer, it's summer.
Summer over here.
It's hot today.
Awesome.
It is. Summer break.
No comments.
A lot going on. We did one camping trip and that's all we've done too. So make it easier on everybody. Okay, no one's here for public comment, so we will move on to the consent agenda and I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions about it before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion passes. We're moving on to our action items and we have nothing out of executive session. So we will move right into the master agreement. Dr. Russell?
Yeah, Chair Jennings trustee is going to ask Mr. Yarborough to come forward and share some information around our master agreement, and happy to answer any questions you may have about that.
Chair Jennings, trustees, Dr. Russell, thank you for the opportunity to come today. Spent quite a few hours in this room, about 60 or so, with two teams that became one team in how we attacked this negotiation session. I would like to give a recognition to Christina Coburn, Shauna Alt, Catherine Ryan. I apologize, I don't have the list in front of me. John Craybill, and I'm going around the table, Melissa Sullivan, who were the NEA negotiations team, and then our own team with Chance Whitmore and Nick Channer, Ashley Lober, and Trustee Taylor, and myself. We did have Carla Reynolds, former principal in the district, serve as a facilitator, and she did a fantastic job helping us navigate. I'm proud to report that the master agreement was ratified by the association last Friday afternoon. We had met on Monday at the last board meeting. We talked that through. So that contract was ratified by them unanimously, according to Mr. Crable. He shared it with me via phone, and then I have a text message from Catherine Ryan confirming ratification of the same. We bring that contract to you to consider for ratification as well. There were 3 minor changes, which I included in a follow-up board memo. Those 3 changes were 2 small language corrections, and then the adjustment on the calendar for the August 5th date, which would be the elementary open house date. We are proposing that the contract doesn't need to have a calendar revote or reapproval. The contract would take care of that because the calendar that the district has approved, the board has approved already for student contact days did not change. The dates on this calendar simply were around redefining student non-contact Fridays and when our staff works within those. So we went through that memo. I believe the board is prepared on that. I stand open to answer any questions you may have or if there's any clarification that you need. So,
Trustees, any questions, comments?
No?
Okay, very good. Well, I appreciate everyone's efforts with this on both sides, and I will open it up for a motion.
I move that we ratify the 26-27 master agreement as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to fiscal year 2025, 2026 amended budget and the 26-27 budget. Dr. Russell.
Yeah, Chair Jennings, before you tonight is the amended budget Mr. Dewey has put forward. Some of that has to do with when the budget is due and putting that in and then closing out the books for the end of the year. There's some adjustments there. I don't know if Mr. Dewey's here to answer any specific questions on that. Maybe ask him to come in here, but Mr. Yarborough, would you see if Mr. Dewey is able to answer any questions that we have on?
Trustees, do we have any further questions?
I think we just discussed them, correct?
Yeah, we just did.
I think we're okay then.
Okay. I move,
We're good.
we're good.
Thank you.
I move to approve the amended 25-26 budget with the new 26 26-27 budget.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, we will move on to item D, certified staff contracts.
Chair Jennings, trustees, before you tonight is the certified contracts to approve. Now that we have a master agreement, you'll see in there, there's a board memo that explains the contracts that we have, and it lists those out. I think there's an attachment there that lists out each of the contracts we have. And so we're just looking forward to having those approved. I'm requesting that they are approved within the 10-day requirement to have all contracts signed and returned, given that that timeframe is important for us to make sure that we get those back in time.
Good. Trustees, questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the 26-27 certified contracts and request contracts to be signed no later than 10 days of received per Idaho Code 35513 to approve the 26-27 certified contracts and request contracts to be signed no later than 10 days of received per Idaho Code 33513.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
That read right?
Yes.
I
Okay.
read it right.
Okay.
Okay, motion passes, and we'll move on to item E, administrator and director contracts.
Chair Jennings, trustees, likewise, you'll see the administrator contracts in your board packet. Administrative contracts don't show an increase outside of just general experience movement and or education movement. And happy to answer any questions you have on those, but they're in your board packet.
Trustees, any questions?
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2026-2027 administrator and director contracts and request contracts to be signed no later than 10 days of received per Idaho Code 33-513.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to item F, middle school gradient ELA curriculum. Dr. Russell?
Yeah, Trustee Jennings and Chair Jennings, trustees, tonight I'm going to have Director Gomez come share around our curriculum adoption that we've had around our middle schools. And there'll be some information that we're going to discuss around some of the text we have in there. And you'll see in your board pack, there's several options for you to discuss on the adoption process. But I'll turn it over to Ms. Gomez and have her start, and then we'll discuss a little bit further.
Okay. Good evening, trustees. We are here to discuss the middle school ELA Adoption Committee recommendation. If you'll recall, we presented two other ones, science and math, that are available to us through our partnership with Gradient Learning. We weren't ready to present the results from the ELA adoption at that time, and so we're going to be sharing that now. Part of the process involves our committee looking at just one, because that's what's available through Gradient Learning, to look at suitability, alignment, appropriateness for the Nampa School District. And so the ELA curriculum is called EL Education. Our next slide is a breakdown of our committee members that served on the committee. It was a blend of an administrator, instructional coaches, parent committee members, and teachers. We did have 3 parent committee members that didn't complete the process. Our next slide describes the process that we follow when doing curriculum adoption. We review standards and build background knowledge. We review and finalize a rubric. We familiarize ourselves with the curriculum, and then we score that curriculum against the rubric. The next slide has the rubric that we have. Criterion 1 was the same as math and science. We look at different indicators of quality. We look at assessment, community, family resources, engagement, technology, etc. And then criterion 2 is our Idaho standards, and we look at the alignment of that curriculum to our Idaho standards. So within EL Education, there are 4 modules, and each of those modules per grade level have different anchor texts associated with those modules. And so this next slide has those novels. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Russell.
Yeah, so trustees, there was a couple of those textbooks, Patient Zero. So in 7th grade, if you look at their slide there, you'll see Patient Zero, and you'll see one last word. And then in 8th grade, you'll see Mouse 1. There were some concerns that were brought forth from some of the committee members, and Director Gomez came in and shared some of those with me. I then began to read some of those books, and this goes back to kind of the history that we've had in our district, where there was some concerns about some text books about 4 years ago when we had banned about 22 books. And so I started reading those, and I had some concerns as well around about how some of those books might be construed. And again, I think some of this could be PTSD from those past years. Some of it could be my own conservative nature. Some of it could just be, I was just a little nervous. So what I did initially after I kind of read those and thought, well, how could this be construed or taken out of context or viewed differently, or could it bring issues? I asked about 7 or 8 other administrators to get together and kind of read these texts. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just being paranoid, and maybe they'll see something different. And so when they read them, we came back and had a discussion, and all of them felt unanimously, all of them felt similar, that there was some very good value in the text, but also some of them could be seen as potentially disruptive or controversial, and could have concerns from some of the families. So when those were discussed, I decided to go in front of the committee and kind of just shared with them, like, hey guys, here's where I've had some concerns. And I kind of went in a little bit of depth with each of those, discussed Patient Zero, which is a textbook around pandemics. It's actually a fascinating textbook, actually, and it goes through all the pandemics throughout history, bubonic plague, and there was one around the 80s AIDS epidemic. I think that could be a little concerning. And then there was around the COVID, just recent pandemic we had. And knowing that there's some sensitive things around, particularly around COVID, with just students who have had losses and experienced some deaths around that. Just thought it was something that should be a little cautious with. And then one last word is a book on poetry. The book focuses around diversity and equity and inclusion. And I was concerned that it may be seen as possibly related somewhat to critical race theory. We know that we have state laws that we're not allowed to teach some of that. And I was worried that somehow that could be misconstrued into that. I don't believe it is. But it was just something that raised a concern for me. And then the last one is Mouse. And Mouse is a really interesting book. It's actually written as a comic book, which makes it extremely difficult for old people like me to read. But apparently children and kids love it. And it uses fictional characters of mouse. So they talk like people, but they're mice, and they're going through World War II and the Nazis and the extermination of the Jews. And it relays history in that way. And so I think it's very valuable in the sense of how it relays history and some of the atrocities that happened, but also there were some graphic things in that as well. Now, with that said, we do have steps in place for us to notify parents and let them know and give them a chance to read things ahead. But also, I just have general concerns about not wanting to create concerns in our community if we don't need to. And I feel like there could be other texts and options for us to be able to use. So I presented that in front of the committee. The committee really felt differently. They thought, no, that these have value and that these are important for us to read, have different views, and have our kids read some of these things and leave it up to some of the parents to make some of those decisions with some of their perspective. And so I told them, well, this is going to be the first time ever where the district administration is going to take a committee recommendation and maybe disagree with it to a certain extent. And I told them that I would do that, and that would ultimately be up to the school board to make a decision. And I would share with them my concerns, and I would share with them, obviously, the perspective of the committee, and then the board would need to make that. So that's kind of where we are today. As an administration and having gone through that process, as a superintendent, I would not recommend those 3 texts in this curriculum adoption. I would recommend the curriculum adoption. I do think it's very important that we do have a curriculum in our middle schools that is uniform, that allows us to be able to teach the standards and have clarity across each grade level. That's something that we haven't had as much in the past, and I think this curriculum gives us that opportunity. I do think that Ms. Gomez can explain a little bit further, but there are options for us to allow our teachers to have a little more say in some of the texts if we don't adopt some of these texts. The other option is you could adopt as is, as the committee recommends. That's definitely one option, and we will be happy to move forward with those if that's the case, because I do think there is value in each of those texts, despite some of the concerns. Or the other option, you'll see in your board package, is not adopted at all, which I would not recommend, because then I think we'd have to go back to kind of square one again, and that wouldn't help us move forward with some of that guaranteed and viable curriculum that we're trying to have around uniformity in our schools. That's big progress with that. So with that said, happy to open up any questions, and Ms. Gomez can answer any questions we have as well.
I want to speak up in defense of the three books, the three potentially problematic books. I have not read, I'm not as familiar with the one word, the poetry book, but I know that my middle schooler, who was a reluctant reader, trying to get him to read anything was challenging. He absolutely was engaged with Patient Zero and all the projects around it. And he learned a lot about, because it's a very cross-curricular book. It has science in there, of course, because it's talking about the biological aspects of all of these various plagues and contagions and all this stuff. But it's also tied into geography and kind of the way that different types of viruses and problems, plagues are transmitted, and what the effect they have on society, both short-term and long-term. And it opened up some really great conversations, and it engaged him in all three of those subjects: geography/history, science, and then ELA. And that's from a parent of a very reluctant middle school reader. So I think there's absolute value in having that. You just have to make sure that your teacher knows what they're doing when they're talking about it. Mouse. I agree, there are some aspects of Mouse that are graphic, but no more graphic than Night. And Night is a very common read on the Holocaust. There's no way to really talk about the Holocaust and the impact of that tragedy without the details of the tragedy. I don't know how to get around that. And it's not something that we can shy away from. And it is such a rich text because it does use the metaphor, and it's a frame text for those of you who haven't read it before. So it starts off with the artist, Art Spiegel, talking to his father who survived the Holocaust. And so when he is in the character of himself in the present day, he is not a mouse. He has like a mask on. You can see it tied. But all the stories about the Holocaust and the things that his parents went through, he's basically doing an oral history. Those are using animals as metaphors. So the mice are the Jews, the cats are the Nazis, the Polish people are pigs, the allies are dogs. Who come in to chase away the cats. And so it's very accessible on multiple levels, and you really do have to think. It forces you to think in a very different way, because sometimes there is dissonance between the text and the image, and sometimes they align and you have to talk about the gaps. And so I would fully recommend, I know we're not doing a motion yet, but I would fully recommend taking up the committee's recommendation to adopt the whole thing as is. That's my 2 cents.
Trustees, any other questions?
Yeah, can I ask how many of the committee members were for versus not?
Yes,
for?
I have some, Chair Jennings, Trustee Salinas, I have some slides where we're going to get into that. It was 60-40 split on, we put both proposals in front of the committee, and it stayed the same. So that is not like normally that's a little closer than we've had when it comes to approving a curriculum. But I'm going to share with you, Tyler, if you could go over through the next slide. I'll get into kind of the ratings and the open house feedback. We're actually on, it says novels within EL education, and then it has those novels crossed out. It is slide 7. So we did put a second proposal. We called the committee back together after they had already rated the curriculum and had Dr. Russell and Mr. Yarbrough visit with them. We did share the novels that wouldn't be included. As I mentioned at the beginning, EL Education has 4 modules, and realistically, we could probably teach 3 of those modules within a year, 1 per trimester. By eliminating 2 of the texts from 7th grade, that would only leave us with 2 modules left to teach, because A Long Walk to Water and Brothers in Hope are part of 1 module. And so our secondary ELA specialists and I visited about what could be a possibility here to address that. And so we thought of what if we had 2 modules from EL Education and then 1 of our recently adopted units that's currently taught. This was the first year they were teaching that. So, and then we also thought in response to the open house feedback, where you'll see that teachers were a little bit concerned about, we really like these units that we're currently teaching. We like these novels. Kids like these novels. We like having some more autonomy, that this could be a good option for 6th and 8th grade also, to have 2 modules from EL Education and then 1 of our currently taught units come forward. So we presented that to district administration and they agreed that could be an option. So the next slide is the options that we presented to the committee when we brought them back together. The one they already rated was approve EL Education unmodified as the middle school ELA curriculum. The second one, this is, we asked them to rate, would you be in support of this or not, was approve EL Education with the exclusion of Patient 0, One Last Word, Mouse 1, and then maintain the currently approved novels that they could choose from. And so that rating stayed the same. It was 60 were in support of that option, and 40% were no. We had 1 person that was a no, changed to yes, and then we had 1 yes, changed to no, because they didn't like the exclusion of one of those books. So those ratings were the same. So I will go over next the virtual open house feedback. We had 14 responses. They were all teachers. We didn't have any parents or communities members fill out that survey. Of the teachers that responded, we had 10 that rated EL Education as adequate and 4 that rated it as unsatisfactory. And again, the concerns were, we just adopted a curriculum. We really like these novels. We don't want a full comprehensive program, amongst some other comments.
And that's for the folks who were unsatisfied.
I'm sorry.
That was for the folks in the unsatisfactory column.
Yes.
That's some of their comments. Okay.
Actually, it was in the adequate column.
Was it in both?
Adequate literally said that they were like, we adopted these, I don't know why. So it was like, this is adequate, but I don't know why we're doing it.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
And we did share with the committee, we are looking at this one as part of the curriculum available to us in Gradient. It doesn't mean we're not going to implement it next year. We're going to focus on implementing secondary math. I don't know the timeline for that. And so we want to be sensitive to when you get a new curriculum, you don't want to have to switch right away either. So we don't have that timeline decided just yet. Okay, so the ELA committee feedback for proposal 1, again, it rated a 1.75 out of 2. And they're rating it on a 2-point scale, 0 not aligned, 1 partial alignment, and 2 high alignment. And then we brought them back together and presented that second proposal. And it was a mix of yeses and nos. We did share with them the results that it was a 60-40. And when I read through all of the committee comments, those that were in favor of adopting EL Education liked the rigor, liked the writing, liked the variety of resources, liked the different lessons that they could incorporate, felt it was more robust than what we had now, challenged kids a little bit more. Those that were against it, some of it came down to teacher autonomy, worried about having a comprehensive program, and then the content of the books. So that's my summation of the committee's feedback. So the next slide shows again, option 1 is approving EL Education with no modifications. The next slide is approving EL Education with some modifications. And then I'll put those options in front of you again, and I am open to any questions you might have.
Okay. Trustees, any questions, comments?
When did we adopt this last when did we adopt EL education last? Let me just give you this one. At South Middle School, the 7th grade team worked very hard over many days to create lessons for the new lit adoption. Now there's a feeling that this was all for naught. When did that adoption take place?
So we adopted secondary ELA last year, and this was the first year of that implementation.
And so what is the need to readopt new? Just walk me through, just so I understand why today we need to readopt this like new curriculum. Is it already outdated? Are we just trying to give them a better plan, make things more comprehensive? But not by no means do I think you do so good at your job. I just want to walk step by step. This is a hard one for me. The parent that I chose to be on the committee isn't in support of the curriculum, right? So there's my reach. This feedback doesn't feel good. And I like to err on the side of caution when it comes to curriculum adoption. Now I'm not anti-book. I was actually one of the only let's not ban books, just because I believe that I don't even know why we couldn't read Anne Frank, right? So that's not my sticking point, but I think this can get sticky. So if we're going to approve something where we kind of have like a half and half split and really negative feedback, I want to understand what the true benefit here is, because I'm not feeling pressure because we just did this.
Mhm.
So help me understand urgency here amidst this feedback.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It's a fair question. Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor. So the reason we're looking at this is because the middle school recently partnered with Gradient Learning. And so there are curriculums available to them through Gradient Learning, math, science, and then ELA. EL is the curriculum that's associated with that. And we have some of our smaller programs that wanted to teach that sooner. And so we put that in front of the committee to see is this appropriate, suitable. But it doesn't necessarily mean we have to implement right away. So we haven't established that timeline. It could be not next year, but maybe the year after, or it could be 3 or 4 years from now when we decide to implement it district-wide. The benefits to it come from that partnership, that we get support with leadership coaching. We just did our math training for our implementation. They came out and worked alongside a member of my curriculum instruction team to help train teachers, provide a lot of support to us. And then the other benefit is that it has a lot of resources for teachers to pull from.
And was that experience with the math curriculum comparable to what we've had before? Because I've heard that about Gradient before, and I can't remember what it was. Summit? I can't remember, right? Summit?
It was Summit.
That was always what the appeal was, right? Is the amount of support that we get. So was that different, when they came out and they worked with you guys on the math curriculum?
Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, it was similar. Actually, in fact, it was better. Now that they're switching to Prism, I would say it was even better than it was when we had the Odell support, because we did a virtual training, and this time they sent 2 people out to come plan for half a day and then work alongside. And then I would just say our experience with the high school ELA adoption, they went with a comprehensive program that was available through Gradient, and we had really great high school ELA scores this year. And I think some of that comes from great teachers, for sure, but also having a comprehensive program with rigorous materials that they could pull from to incorporate into instruction.
Yeah. Dr. Russell, do you have something to add to that?
Chair James, no, Director Gomez hit it. I was just going to reiterate. It's the support that we get around the professional development that is really helpful. It's something that made us attracted to that. Also, that because we did it in high school and middle school, now we'd have 612 on this as well. And so there were a couple of reasons why we decided to do that. And the access to the other curriculums, the social studies and some of the others, was why we looked at Gradient.
And so, Dr. Russell, is your suggestion to adopt without those novels to keep us out of previous situations? And again, understand that this is coming from somebody who feels like there should never be. I don't feel like you can put I feel like you should read. I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah, Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, yes, the recommendation would be to adopt EL curriculum without those 3 novels and allow the teachers to use the units that they've created already. So use 2 of those novels in 7th grade, and then have one that they've already, a unit that they've already built, and then similar, give it the other grades an option as well. It seemed like it was a good compromise to honoring the work that they have done prior and some of the things that they enjoy teaching about the units they have now, but also taking on a Gradient and using that uniformity across the district.
Trustee Benz?
And so just to game things out, to kind of map things out, if we said, yes, we are going to adopt EL education as a potential curriculum, but we are only really offering it as an option so that those people who want to be early adopters, those schools who would like to just jump right in and do it, have that as an option. And we delay the adoption, the implementation of EL education for all the other schools until the cycle would have come up for a new adoption. Will the point be moot? Will we have to go back and readopt this? Or is this just like, you have two options? You have option A, you can do this thing, this new one through Gradient, if that is what your school has, if that's the path your school has chosen, everything's on Gradient, you can do that. We're good with that. Everybody else, you're sticking with this other one. Or teacher A, because this is an option, you can now use, how would this work? What exactly are we looking at?
Chair Jennings, Trustee Benz, likely one or two of our smaller programs, maybe Union and Nova, would implement this next year if it was approved. The comprehensive programs would be on a later timeline, and I don't have a date for that yet. I think that decision would be made in conjunction with district administration. They could decide, or we could decide it might be prudent for us to do this sooner. And some of that might be decided by, how our students perform at middle school on the ISAT. Like, it might be time to look at more robust resources. Or it could be 3 or 4 years from now, but it would come together and be implemented until the next adoption cycle, which would be 7 years from now.
Okay, but if we approve this today so that school A and B can use it, will we have to reapprove it if we don't implement it immediately, whenever it is that the other schools decide to adopt it? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chair Jennings, Trustee Benz, very good question. My assumption would be yes, you would, partly because you'd have likely then different board members sitting. You likely could have different director. You could have different superintendent. We don't know what that likes in 2, 3,
I
4
hate when you say
years.
things like that.
So my thought would be, yes, you would want to get whoever's sitting as trustees to get the community together and to get new teachers together and go through that process again. What we'd like to, though, is, and I want to reiterate what Director Gomez says, we'd like to get on the same page. That's something that we've done around highly reliable schools is making sure that we're on the same page, whether you're at a small program or you're a big program or you're at high school A or high school B or middle school C or middle school D. We want to be similar. And what that does is that reduces the variance. And variance is, when you reduce variance, that's how you raise achievement. So we think this is really important for us to be able to reduce that variance, raise our achievement. We've seen that be successful in our high schools. We'll share at the end of the meeting some of the growth we've seen in our high schools and where we're performing at or above state average in some of our comprehensive high schools. As Director Gomez says, most of that is because we have great teachers, but also helps when you have good resources with great teachers, you get results. And I think that's what we want to see. We have great teachers at our middle schools. We think if we get a good resource there, we could see similar growth.
And so I guess I have another question. Is that okay? So if we say, for example, hypothetically, right? Yes, we want to approve the EL education curriculum as is, no changes. However, caveat, schools may choose to supplement one unit with the existing curriculum or something like that. Is that, I mean, what would that look like? Would that lead us back to that inconsistency? If we have that mixed model, even if we say, oh, we're going to approve the modified EL education without those novels, and therefore you're going to have to draw in a flex unit, would it be flexed by school, or would everybody be flexing the same unit? I don't know.
Chair Jennings, Trustee Benz, we would all be aligned. And so we
Okay.
have a focus group. Joyce Pena is our secondary ELA specialist, and she spent a lot of time with our high school teachers, getting them together in a focus group to help develop the units and bring clarity, because you'll notice in some of the feedback from the teachers is this is a lot, it's overwhelming. But they spent a lot of time this year making those units more user-friendly for teachers and ensuring that they're aligned to our essential standards. And so the same work would happen at the middle school, where that focus group would come together and they would say the 7th grade novel that's going to be that 3rd module is going to be this. And then everybody in the district would be teaching the same.
Thank you.
From a financial standpoint, that does require us to have 2 curriculums, so correct?
Chair Jennings, Trustee Benz, the EL education, the comprehensive resources are available for free online because it's open education resource. The piece that would be an additional cost is to purchase some additional novels. So because we would be using one that we already have, it would be purchasing novels for 2 modules versus 3.
Okay, random question. We can't read Anne Frank because, just so I understand, is that like off the list? We find that too controversial. Is Anne Frank like off the list for life? I'm just trying to gauge why maybe we couldn't read some of these books. Like, is Anne Frank off the list, or we've just moved on to the Mouse book?
Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, Anne Frank is part of our currently adopted curriculum, and 8th grade will be reading that.
So they can still read that book. It's not off the table. So when we're talking controversial books, we don't consider that one controversial. So we found the Mouse to be more controversial. Okay,
Chair-
I needed to ask that question for clarity in my head, I guess.
Yeah, Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, I found that to be more controversial.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to gauge.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Part of it is the age,
Mhm.
and part of it is just being cautious.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm
That's my
trying to be really
justification.
cautious here, but understand where I'm coming from. So the one parent that I have is a no. You're giving me a 60-40 split, and none of my feedback is positive, right? I don't think this is a you thing, and I'm trying to decide, not a you thing at all. What I'm trying to say is it's not personal as much as I'm wrestling with the decision to, what 2 schools want to roll it out right away?
Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, Union would like to teach that and teach this curriculum, and I've heard Nova,
Yeah.
but there'll be new administration, so that may not be true for Nova next year.
Because I wouldn't be, because it's gradient, we're already a part of it, right?
Mhm.
So this isn't a financial, I would love maybe, I just don't feel comfortable based on what I have for a full board go ahead. Just based on this and how controversial they've been in the past, and maybe I'm being overly cautious. Greg said it a few times, or Dr. Russell said it a few times tonight, PTSD. It's a possibility for me here for sure. But I feel like I would be more prone to do something like that, like approve rollout for Union with feedback to come back to the board.
Mhm.
But primarily because the feedback is a lot. Like every ounce of feedback is so so there are many good things about the curriculum, including that every student would have a novel. I love, right? Because I was even trying to find in the app, like, I love that. I agree that they would need to take it home, but then my concerns have to do with making the timeline fit with the material. I know there'll be another committee dedicated to making those discussions. So now I'm hearing that there's a second committee within this first committee, or I'm reading that. Like, do you see where I'm just a little bit unsure?
Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, what they're referring to is that focus group that comes together as a group of teachers from within the district to create
Yeah.
units and make some decisions for what we'll do.
Yeah. And just if we remove the homework aspect, it will all take twice as long to complete each module, and that's fine. But will this district receive all the materials and then have a bunch of unused resources? Will we have a bunch of blank pages and workbooks because we're skipping around based on the scope and sequence of what we're taking out? Like, I think those are really valid questions, because now we're picking and choosing. Again, I love gradient, and I do think that to an extent we knew that this was going to happen moving into gradient, because all of a sudden everything is available to us and we have to be cautious. But please, yes, I feel like you get maybe what I'm trying to ask.
Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, yes, I think all of those things are true. I do think there is a piece of the context that you've alluded to that we really need to take into consideration, and that is that we just went through an adoption cycle.
Mhm.
And the purpose is that as we've tried to communicate, just want to clarify that, going to grading and moving that's why we wanted to bring it to the board to see where we may go. Mr. Dewey just talked about budgets and where things are headed. We may get to a spot where our options from a financial standpoint are not as robust as they are now. And so that dynamic of giving choice within a 3 to 4 to 5 year time period, we've adopted these curriculums and we can't support those, allows us to put student learning at the forefront while navigating some of these other politically charged issues. And I think that dynamic of finding the PTSD thing we've all lived through is that piece of what is the needle that we can thread of we still can allow access to this program if the district continues to head down that route, based off of, is it the best financial decision for us to support student learning? And again, I think we can't discount what we've seen from results at the high school level with using
now Prism and those things. They're pieces of consideration. I just wanted to bring that up. when I
No,
was
they
hearing that
are.
group,
And that's
so.
why I found Gradient Summit, I found it all to be so good. I just, like I've said, this is probably the most controversial one that you've even had to present to us. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Benz?
Sorry, and just not to belabor the point, but if we modify the motion or whatever, and we say we're going to approve EL education for rollout in Union and Nova this year, and everyone else, a timeline will be determined later, but we're gonna have to go through the adoption again at that later time. I don't know.
Yeah, Chair Jennings, Trustee Benz, yeah, I think you would need to, because you didn't necessarily adopt the curriculum completely, adopt it for 2 schools, and you left the other schools with the
Yeah,
ones that
you'd
was
have to.
adopted last year. So
You'd have
now ultimately as a board, you could, I guess, suppose 3 years from now, historically, you don't want to make a decision for a future board. But
Right.
you could say, yes, it's approved, and it could be approved through a certain date, I suppose. I don't think that'd be good practice. I think when it came up for another curriculum adoption, you'd want to have whoever's sitting as the board, you'd want to have a fresh committee and start that process again.
Right. But just trying to honor because we have 2 very different needs, right? So Union and Nova would very much like to be able to use this immediately because it fits with the structure of their program. They're using everything else on Gradient. The students are more self-directed in terms of pace and all that stuff. That makes sense. However, if we adopt this as a curriculum writ large for the district, that has the potential for teachers who have invested time and energy in creating the new units for the just recently adopted curriculum, which likely those units would be modified and rolled out this year because the adoption happened last fall, right? So last fall was the first year with it. And so they were designing the units, and now this is the first year that you're, no? Okay. But there's potential there for discontent and therefore not peak implementation, if that makes sense.
Chair Jennings, Trustee Benz, I completely agree. And I think that is one of those options of having and maintaining currently approved novels. The group that's deciding that is this group that's teaching. There is representation from them coming forward because we do want to find that balance and honor the work that they've done. Yes. And what we are seeing from a student outcome perspective, granted, one piece of measurement on a standardized test, it's difficult to navigate without some standardized curriculum things that we are missing when we're just teaching novels.
Yes.
And so to have a robust set of tools to be able to do that might be the way to navigate that in the next 3 to 5 years. Again, not putting a timeline on when they would have to adopt that, but have that opportunity and give those folks that are in the thick of it, developing what that looks like so that in 3 to 5 years, when a new superintendent or new board or whoever comes up, it's still there, but that work has been done. And quite honestly, what should be driving that is student outcomes based off of how we're performing and what level we can get to. So
I guess I'm just looking for the actual practical, what would this look like? Because right now it feels very squishy. And
Chair Jennings, Trustee Benz, you've explained it well.
Okay.
If you went and you adopted it and you allowed the small programs to use EL and the other programs to use the curriculum they adopted, then you would have 2 programs using different curriculum, which is why we're not recommending that. We're recommending that all of us use the same curriculum. We are recommending that the teachers may not like that process because they did invest in it, but we think in the general health of the overall organization, it'd be better to have that. So I think you have those are the 2 realities.
I just have one final question. Just so we're all clear, because I did have a lot of questions. I'm going to be to move forward and take out the text that Dr. Russell has suggested, because I always knew that gradient adoption would mean this going forward so that we could stay within what we feel the standard of our community to be. Would that be a good way to put it, Dr. Russell, while you pulled those books out? Is community standard, and then also obviously state law. you just reiterated to me that we're still going to teach Anne Frank. If I'm taking the mouse book off of the 8th grade list, are we still, I very much think it's important that we teach the Holocaust. I can't express enough how much I feel like people should read. So it's even hard for me to take away books. But I was trying to look in here to make sure we're still covering the Holocaust at some point, grade 6 to 8, if we take away the mouse book.
Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor. Yes, so
Okay.
our current curriculum is centered around Newsella and novels, and as part of what we currently teach, Anne Frank is a part of that.
Yeah.
If we were to adopt EL education and
Take out the mouse book.
the focus group could decide we're going to teach Anne Frank and Bomb. Bomb's another one that's
Okay,
related to
perfect.
Holocaust.
So there's other
That could be a unit.
text in there that will meet that need if we pull that book out, and we're not gonna. Okay, I am so solved. I said that for Jeff, but I am so solved right now. I said that for Jeff, not that.
Trustees, any other
Yeah.
questions, comments? Ms. Gomez, or were you?
Yeah, I just had one other slide where we just wanted to thank our committee members. We had 64 committee members participate in curriculum adoptions this year. We had 3
big one.
cycles where multiple curriculums were looked at. In the winter, we had elementary science and dual credit math. And in the fall, we were looking at multiple curriculum available through Gradient for high school. We were looking at those for our middle schools this spring. And we're just really grateful that we had people that came out after work and hung out with us until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night to look at materials, engage in discussion. We are really lucky to have such great committees that are just really committed to finding good quality resources and vetting those for our teachers and students. And just also shout out to my team. I have a small team of curriculum instruction specialists that help facilitate all of these and help lead that curriculum adoption committee through this work. And so we're just really grateful for everyone that's participated.
Agreed.
And I think to you as well. I really think that you have shined in this role, and I think that your demeanor is very helpful, because I think that sometimes you're talking about what can be very tumultuous content in this community. So, I mean, you have just handled this role with grace.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
No, I'm going to make a motion, but after a second, I would like to speak to it, just so you guys are clear. I move that we approve EL education with the exclusion of Patient Zero, One Last World, and Mouse One, and maintain currently approved novels at the middle school ELA curriculum for the Nampa School District.
Second it.
Okay, so the reason I want to speak to it is I believe that when we decided to move towards Gradient, because of the need of organizational health and cost of curriculum, I think that I was fully aware that going forward, we would have to vet some of those materials, because Gradient just gives us an open platform to everything. But I agree, the success that we've had at the older grades, and we're still putting novels in people's hands. And then I do think that this gives us greater consistency 5 years down the road. And I don't want to make a board decision for a future board either. So I feel pretty comfortable right there. And I also feel like if Dr. Russell has vetted the material, meaning he got involved just because, right, we had community concern, I think that that shows me that the system is working how it's intended to, because we're vetting the material, concerns are coming forward, and we're moving forward with Gradient. So I just wanted to put that on record, because I feel really good about the choice now that we've discussed it. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye, nay.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item G, Roosevelt Cabling Protect E-rate.
Chair Jennings, trustees, Mr. Topper is here to share some information around our Roosevelt cabling project here and answer any questions.
Chair Jennings and Board of Trustee members, this is a unique request that we do have from our IT department. There's actually 2 requests. There's one motion and a request that's embedded in this proposal that we have in front of you. We have been remodeling and redoing a lot of our cabling networks throughout our schools, because most of our schools are now approaching that 20+ year age group, and so their data cabling is becoming out of dated and not being able to carry our systems. So Roosevelt was one of those that we have already done the cabling for. So it already has been done. It's already been paid for out of state funds. This was done through, in the memo, we reference it as the BEAR program. It's a reimbursable program from state technology budgets that we are provided. There's a second budget that we have access to, which is the E-rate budget, and that is through the federal government. And that is where we can get our expenditures that are on data-based cabling projects reimbursed at 80%, which means that we can receive 80% back on money that we have already paid for this project, which is about $80,000. So this, however, requires board approval. And so that's why this memo is being brought forward to you is to explain that process and also ask for the board's permission to apply this reimbursement to our E-rate. Now, also E-rate is a use it or lose it. So you have to use those funds for this process. And so this is a net gain for the district. We would receive about $80,000 back from the state tech fund that we'd be able to reuse in the district and other places. So it is a very positive thing. And so that's why it's in front of you. So that's the actual action item, but there's a second part is some guidance that we'd like to receive from our IT department. In April, we had this come forward a little bit in the consent agenda, and I know it brought some questions up. So the request or guidance that we have as a second part from the board is to ask, to notify that we do in surrounding districts, this is generally taken care of in a consent agenda, the reimbursements, and the E-rate is typically handled in that fashion. And we'd like to continue to see what the board's guidance is on if that is something you would like us to do in the future, and or if you would like to keep it in the action items as this one currently is. So again, one action item and one guidance.
Trustees, questions?
Which do we do first?
That's my only question.
Action item would be first.
Okay.
So I move to approve the reimbursement application request for the USAC for 80% of the Roosevelt Data Replacement Project.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I think in terms of the recommendation, it makes sense to put it in the consent agenda.
I agree.
I agree.
Completely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you.
we appreciate that, and we'll incorporate that in the future in that realm.
Okay,
Thank
don't
you.
go too far.
Yeah.
I won't.
Rare to see you so infrequently up here, Gordon.
Very good. Okay, we'll move on to our information items, and I'll turn the time over to Dr. Russell.
Yeah, trustees, Mr. Stauffer is going to stay up there and he's going to give us an update on just where we are with some of the facility projects we have going on around the district.
Luckily, I only have two items for you in the facility update. So one is just giving you a general update on each of the projects, which we do have quite a few projects going on this summer. They are all on budget, which is the number one primary component. And the second one is that they're all in the time frame. I've met with each one of the construction management individuals and also the ones that we are also project managing on our own. And we are doing very well with our timelines. We are ahead of schedule on the majority of our projects. Which is great. The one that is still we're working on making sure our timeline will work is still the bus parking lot that was approved by the board. We did have an item that came back from the city that we're working through after we had gotten through this process, but we feel we'll have a resolution tomorrow on it, and so we have been able to do the initial phases. So it has not slowed us down at this juncture. But we will update the board as that moves on as well. But we seem to be on time with everything and ahead of schedule on all of our projects, which I'm very excited about. And then the second item that we wanted to visit about with facilities is, if the board recalls, a few months ago, we had Tracy Richter of HPM, which is an organization that has worked with the district in the past for our master planning proposals. They've also helped us with our realignment of the school boundaries. They came and did a little bit of discussion about our master plan and where it is at this point in time and some things they might be able to do to help us with the master planning. Currently, we're at a place with all of the 521 money that we do have that we have started to chip away at some of our deferred maintenance, and also looked at our opportunities to help our district overall. But our facility maintenance plan now has been outdated a little bit in the sense that we have accomplished the majority of the tasks that were in it. And we would like to gauge the board's interest in having Tracy and his group come back and do a presentation on some things that they can help us as far as revamping our current facility plan or our past facility plan with specific guidance on one of the major issues that we do have left over from our first facility maintenance plan, which is Nampa High, helping us to understand what do we need to do and what can we do moving forward with with that school, and how do we utilize our funds to best address the needs that we have as a district currently. And so again, this is more of a request if the board would be willing to do that. They are willing to come in and provide us some dialogue and share some things that we can do to help that. This would not be a decision like, hey, here's the thing to do. It would be, is the board willing to engage and explain what they can do, and then have the board decide if that is something that we would like to do as a district and work with them again.
And the deferred maintenance on Nampa High is in the tens of millions, correct?
It is. It's over $27 million alone. But there's some underlying things that are coming up in the next year and a half. I think there's another 30 million that comes up in 2 years. So it put just the sticker price for deferred maintenance at Nampa High over 60 million in the next 2 years. Nampa High is so unique because of its, and again, I speak with a loving tinge behind. I'm a Nampa High graduate. All my kids have gone through Nampa High, but its uniqueness and its shape and what makes it somewhat of a cultural icon is also some of the things that causes some of our greatest challenges.
Sure.
Coupling that with some of the safety and security features that we're really working on. There's some challenges that we need to look at it collectively. And I think the best way that we can do that is get everybody involved in that process. And I think HPM has a good history of being able to help us with that. They've had the experience, they've worked in facilities like this. And so we propose that the board would listen and take an opportunity to pick their brain and decide what and how they might be able to work with the Nampa School District in moving forward with an eye on that piece in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chair Jennings, trustees, just to add on to what Mr. Stauffer had to say, it is one of those opportunities we thought would be wise, at least for us to hear information, and so having information on it, have them present information. Nampa High is a concern. We do have money within our accounts to address facilities concerns. It's just Nampa High's age is so old. Do we put money into Nampa High, or do we start addressing Skyview, Columbia, some of these other buildings that are aging as well? And we don't have enough to go across all the district. So I think having them come in and just kind of share, here's some options to consider. We may need to do nothing on those options. We may want to explore those more. You may want to ask questions on it. It just seemed like a good starting point for us to talk through how do we address some of those needs, considering we have limited resources, but we have bigger needs.
There's a lot of four walls out on Nampa High campus. It's one big set. So, Trustee Ben?
And would that be a regular, like a presentation to the board in this type of context, or would it be a working session, or?
Chair Jennings and Trustee Benz, I think the initial component would be to have a conversation with HPM to kind of understand what they feel that they could bring to us for a work session, what they could bring to us as far as products for us to be able to look at as a district. So this would be, obviously, working with them would be a monetary relationship, right? We would have to engage them. This first part would be for them to share with us what deliverables that they could provide for us, and have the board look at that and determine if that value is high enough for us to engage in a relationship with them.
So I just want to say that I've looked at Tracy's company as a really good ally and resource. And so I would be for that primarily because of the benefit that we got the last time we worked with him. So I would like to explore it personally, obviously 1 of 5, but to throw out there that we have worked with him before. I do feel like he has a robust amount of in-person knowledge because he's done it. And I do feel like sometimes we need allies that we're not, sounding against ourselves. And I feel like we do a good job of looking without outside of our organization. He's just really good. And I felt like he meshed well with our organization to try to keep it very simple, and that he was trustworthy, and we're going to spend money somehow. So I would be in favor of it, especially just as an initial consultation. I would like to see it as a little bit more of a lunch and learn if he's coming out, but just so that the other board members can get to know Tracy, because I felt like when he came on the screen, I just thought, yep, we're going to work with you. You know what I mean? But just because of the relationship that we were able to build with Tracy, because we saw him so many times prior to having him come out to do the work for us. So I really found him valuable. I'm just throwing that out there because I felt like it was important that I felt like he was a good partner.
And so do we just need to make a recommendation?
I think you're looking for approval to bring him out, right?
I think just an agreement for consultation consultation.
Yeah, an agreement for
And then
consultation.
it would be, if you want, they could set up it would have to be a work session, but it could be as a.
Is he
lunch
coming
and
here?
learn With that would, and just include food with
Well,
the work session.
But is he coming here or is it
So,
remote?
Chair Jennings and Board of Trustees, what the idea would be to come is just even as an informational, because again, at this point in time, they haven't put together, they haven't done
Got
the
it.
research, they haven't done all those things to do a true work session. This would be more of an informational for the board to consider what things they could do, and then for us to engage with them in putting together a package for
I
us.
just feel like in this setting, it doesn't hit home that same way as the board. That's why I think last time it kind of fell a little flat because he presented, because I think it's like when you bring him up here as an information item, I'm just throwing that out.
Sure.
Yeah, Chair Jennings, Trustee Taylor, he would be in person, is my
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah.
They were going to be here. And I think that's why we thought, well, if they're going to be here, would there?
Yeah,
we
I'd
have
love
him
it.
Come and just share, here's some ideas that we could do. Do you want us to explore these ideas and come with more? Perhaps do a further work session or a lunch to learn or whatever. I mean, I think that's what we want to hear.
Yeah,
Is it
something.
worth us? We didn't want to schedule
worth
it
it.
and then have the
Schedule
trustees
it.
be like, we're not interested in this. Why
No, we're
is-"
interested. I think we're interested.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's interested.
He's always brought value for us.
He's always brought value for us.
Yes, he has. So we appreciate that. And so we'll make arrangements for that and we'll communicate back to you what that will look like. So thank you for that information.
And just something that's really about him so we can dedicate time to him, I think would be really helpful
Yes.
because I think he brings valuable information and I think we're going to need assistance. That's a
Yeah.
lot of deferred maintenance.
I'd say there's a
$30
lot.
million isn't a joke for one school.
Yep.
It basically eats over half of our budget.
That's correct. And then trustees, one last item for the facilities is just wanted to make you aware that in the future board meetings, we're probably going to bring back some more information. We've had some opportunities here recently to look at some opportunities to improve some more safety and security in all of our buildings. And we're going to come back and bring some more information to you regarding some possibilities that we do have and we feel really good about to help increase just our campuses and our response times from our first responders. We had some opportunities this week to work with a pilot program that we've been working on. And so we're going to come back and do some more reporting on that. It is fresh, but being here today, we wanted to put it on your radar that there's some things that we're pretty excited about that will be coming up at future board meetings.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustees, next on agenda item is our monthly enrollment. You'll see the end of the year enrollment, and average daily attendance report. Happy to answer if you have any questions on that.
None for me.
Okay.
Then we'll move on to the next item we have, a superintendent's report, and I'm going to ask Tyler to bring up some information around this. As we are in June, we did complete our spring assessment and testing, and we have some very positive things to report around the growth of our district. In 18-19, the Napa School District had really strong growth when it did its academic testing years ago. And then in 1920, COVID hit. And so there was no testing then. And then 2021, we did our retesting again, and we saw that our students had dropped drastically, more so than the rest of the state, more so than the nation. We just saw a great deal of decline in our students. And so we have been working hard the last 4 or 5 years to kind of dig out of that. And this is the first year where we're starting to see us kind of get back to where we were 18-19, where we are very close to state average or making growth that's above the state average, or having pockets of success that are even higher than that. So you can see here, this is our growth on our ISATs this year. You see really good scores in our growth for English language arts and mathematics. Really proud of the work our teachers have done. You'll see the percentage of advanced proficiency is 2023 to now. Some of those have reached double digits. You look at 11th grade, just how impressive that is for our high schools to go from that to now very, very close to state average. And some of our high schools are outperforming the state in some of those ways as well. So that's some really good growth this year out of Napa High did some really nice things as well. And we're really proud of the work that they did in the high school area. Skyview and Columbia have been performing very, very well. It's also a testament to some of our alternative programs. Napa Academy and Union have done a wonderful job of taking those students who maybe have struggled in our comprehensive high schools and getting them in programs that fits their needs and allowing them to be successful there. So it's a system working together and working well. Really happy with that as well. Tyler, let's see our next slide here. So this just shares. Well, we didn't really want you to skip it. So. The next slide here is our growth, 4-year growth. So that looked at a couple years growth, but you can see again, we're really happy with some of the growth that we've seen, and we expect that to continue the next couple of years. This also has something to do with high reliability schools and getting our schools back to focus on some things that are really beneficial around curriculum, instruction, having safety in our schools. And so excited about the growth that we have. Still got some ways to go. Curriculum adoptions that we've seen and kind of learning those and becoming more accustomed as our teachers become more accustomed to their curriculums. We see more and more results around that. We also did some work this year around ensuring that the skills and standards that we taught align to the assessment. One of the things that we learned through higher reliability schools is you could have, you can learn a lot of things. You just learn the things that aren't tested. And I think that's some of the things that we saw. And so you do want to align the things that your kids are learning with what's on the end of the year assessment. So happy with that. We also had our IRI, last year was the highest we've ever had in the district around our IRI. This year there was a new state test. Our schools did very well in that. And we were a little bit below where we were last year, but not a great deal. I think it was about 3 percentage points off from where we were a year ago. Considering that was a brand new test, we were pleased with that, and we expect us to continue to make some of that good growth. We know our first grade and second grade, or is it kinder and first grade, we're right where the state was. So that's positive. Those kids coming in, and our second and third grades also did a good job. So we'll look at having that in year 2. And also just want to recognize Central Elementary did a wonderful job this year in their ISATs. They have a very a difficult student population with high and free and reduced students, but they love their students well. The teachers work very hard, and they outperformed a lot of schools, and were one of our best performers this year, and they put in a lot of work. And so just want to publicly recognize Central for doing such a wonderful job. It's really, really great to see that. And just thanks to all the teachers this year who just worked so hard. Our teachers, we have a great teaching staff that love their kids. They're getting a well-deserved rest now. But they'll be back at the end of July and ready to roll in August. So we want to thank them for that as well. That said, the last thing I wanted to just highlight on the superintendent's report is one of the things that we are watching carefully as administration is as we drop students and we downsize as a district, some of our concerns about how do we provide programs and afford some of those programs at all of our schools. So a good example is like in our comprehensive high schools, as those tend to get smaller, it becomes more and more challenging us for able to provide programs at each one of those schools. And that's something that we're watching closely. And as we watch our enrollment, if we continue to drop, we may have to make some really hard decisions about, do we provide a program at each of the high schools, or do we have just a district program that some of those students have to travel to? So just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that. As we get closer to some of those discussions, if we have to make some of those really hard decisions, we obviously would bring some more information ahead of time, would communicate with our community as well. It's just something that we see on the horizon as Mr. Dewey said earlier, as we see a smaller cohort of kinder enroll and a larger senior class leave. It's just this natural attrition that we get smaller and smaller, which makes it challenging considering we have not seen a lot of increases around some of that discretionary spending, and it just makes it hard when we look at some programs that are very small and whether we can continue to afford doing that. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention and let them know that we're watching that closely.
Awesome.
We appreciate that, Dr. Russell. We appreciate the admin team keeping us so informed.
With that said, I think that's all we had.
Okay. Aside from having a meeting with Tracy, which we've discussed, anything else we can add to an agenda item, trustees?
No.
Okay, and we will adjourn.